This is High Vibe TV, the uncensored, guided, and community-based video TV network with content recorded and live streamed from the world-famous High Vibe TV studios. High Vibe TV delivers daily, weekly, and special programs focused on astrology, spirituality, history, community, and more. This is not your run-of-the-mill astrology and tarot. This is the future of spirituality, illuminating new ways the collective can step into the dawning of this exciting new dimension. The highest vibe is truth, and the truth always prevails. Download our awesome app on the Apple and Android stores so you don't miss our notifications, with special spiritual insights curated to the energy of the universe. Search for us on your TV with our exciting TV apps on Apple TV and Roku. Catch our vibe on your computer, where you can join in on the live chat with our amazing community and blog. Watch spirituality like you've never seen before. Download our apps or go to highvibe.tv. Subscribe now.
Well, now we go into Spiritual Daddy Overtime. Our topic for tonight is reality check. I think that we have created this reality check concept for the fact that there is this benefic energy of Jupiter-Venus coming together. Yet at the same time, we're at critical degrees with Saturn and Pluto. And Saturn and Pluto are finally going to separate by 30 degrees, but still in the same sign. So technically, we're starting to see the beginning of our whole new chapters. But at the same time, there's a full moon that's brewing, that's coming to start here on Sunday. And by the time we come back here on Monday, it will have happened to where this is the last day of Saturn in Aquarius with a full moon in Virgo, a big reality check about our futures and making sure with Mercury coming into Pisces this week in its fall position, that we really don't get caught up into the illusions, especially of Chiron being with this Jupiter-Venus. If anything, I think the gift that we're being given in the benefic is to be humbled and to understand that maybe we didn't act on things for a different reason than we realize, or we're getting a different perspective of understanding if we're really as bad off as we think we are. I don't know. What do you feel?
I'm in agreement with a lot of that, because Virgo is such a humbling sign when all's said and done. It does kind of, in many ways, like pop our ego bubble. Like we go through Leo, and like Leo definitely puts it all out there, and it is very identified. And then Virgo kind of, there's this like a humbling that comes after that, or judgment of self from maybe what the ego put out there. So to have a sun in Pisces, a moon in Virgo, there is this sort of like deep spiritual humbling. And to have Chiron in Aries, which is really going to be in that quincunx to this full moon, and Venus crossing over it, and Jupiter meeting with Chiron. I mean, gosh, we have so much ego going for us right now, and it's a weird place, because the ego is something that is very, it's sacred and special to each and every one of us, but it's how we identify with it in the greater whole, and with the universe, and with our intuition, and how all things kind of meet together, that really provide the best service for people. And I suppose that it does feel like with the edge that we're on with all these planets and just so much there, it's like we have to have our ego popped a little bit right now so that we can purify it, so that we can use this benefic energy in a, malefic sign, Mars, to really identify with a bigger purpose, a more spiritual whole, to come into a bit of a surrender instead of just a controlled, just by the book, this is the routine way. We have to do things differently. So it's a whole like different identification that is humbling, because we're having to identify on a much more a higher consciousness than ever before, at least in our lives, maybe in past generations, many years ago, they had to go through something similar, but it feels very unique, very on the edge. We have so much to identify with, but I feel like we also don't know what to identify with yet. And I just feel like that is something that comes through very spiritually to each and every one of us. And it's about listening to that without our prescribed way that we think it's supposed to be, or what the dose of life is supposed to be. There's the universe is going to give you the dose of life that you need, and you want to listen to that doctor, if you will. And this isn't just some doctor. I feel like this is really a spiritual thing, if you will. So it's kind of where I'm at with it. It's an interesting one. There's a lot going on. There's just so much ego, and then so much just surrender, let go, don't force, good luck. You know, it's an interesting time.
It's a huge surrender.
Huge.
It's also the end of the zodiac with Saturn at 29, to Aquarius going into Pisces, with Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn coming into Aquarius. These are the end of the line. So Jupiter and Venus, it's the understanding of like, okay, I'm confident that whatever happens, I'll be all right. Especially the last time Jupiter Venus met, of course, here was in 1904. But ironically enough, the time before that was in 1857, right after the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction in Pisces we just had. So if you look at the history, the confidence of people in their egos was to keep slavery going in 1857. And then there were those that were finally confident enough to say, no, we're going to try and stop this. What side of the fence are you going to be on? This is a big, this is where Jupiter and Venus and Aries is asking the question, with Neptune being in Pisces, and especially that the North Node is the dispositor, right? Venus, because it's in Taurus. It's about the values and creating things, and definitely not about exploding things and not letting the ego define without thinking about the repercussions of what about the effects on people? What about the effects on the world? What about the effects of also with Pluto being at the end of Capricorn, you know? These are very high-staked moments in our life where you don't want to just get off the train. You know, sometimes it feels like, you know, we're over the ride. We're over the work. We're over the things. But it's one of those things to where in order to get to where we need to go next, like in any good situation, or, you know, I've been replaying Wolfenstein again. And the only way that you get through is you have to kind of, okay, I don't want to have to go inside to break the people out, but I got to go inside. You know, it's one of those things to where it feels like you don't want to go through some of the situations anymore, and you just want relief, and you just want the angels to come down and pull you out of this situation and bring you to where? If you were to actually think about where that place would be, it just wouldn't make sense anyway. There'd be too many things that you'd be asking for God to do, which we don't want to be putting burdens on God. And that's how we know we're coming from the ego, is when we're asking for something that just would ask the universe to just do things ass backwards. So I think it's an important thing to ask yourself. The reality check is it really that bad? And to know that you can figure these things out that seem like extreme troubles or confusing moments or feeling stuck in between or at the critical edge. Realize that we came here to be the front seat ticket holders to this ride, and that you are beyond blessed to identify that we are at this point. That's what it is to me. I feel like it's like the understanding and the blessing to be that you are here and what it already took to get you here. And how like you've already come this far in your life to make it to this point, let alone all your other lives and so forth, to make it to this point is everything. And that's what I think it really is about. It's like you said, it's a much more deep spiritual thing, not an ego thing. And it really is. It's like, you know, and it's about the creating thing. And creation takes time. And beautiful and good things take time. And Pluto at the last end of being here in Capricorn takes time. And even Saturn takes time for all the dots to come together. So everything is about patience. Really, right now. Yeah, even when we've been given more challenges to patience than any other place, because we've been given a world that's so fast paced and then stop and then fucking not know where it's going to go next, instead of just getting right back where we thought it was going to go. So you would think, well, maybe people in like 1000 or 1200 AD, the patience to try and finally get a book that you could actually read, you still would have had to wait hundreds of years, you know? Whereas in this one, it's like, it feels so extreme because it feels like you have to be patient when you've already had to be patient because the world's turning literally, and the rudder of this world is turning a huge ass fucking boat with the most people on this earth ever, with the most energy in the universe. And it could be annoying or it could be scary, but it's really a lucky moment for us to be in.
I'm with you. I think we should all be very grateful to be here. We're lucky to be on this planet at this time. And I know that the world like looks like this tower moment at times right now, but I feel like the truth is that it really is more the temperance card. Like David was saying and talking about, there's a divine flow and things take time to come into creation. And it's just being in that flow, but seeing how beautiful it is and having, you know, one foot in our emotional waters, having another foot on the land. So being very intuitive, very grounded, being able to go in, being able to move on top, on the surface and in the flow, and to just let that natural ability to connect to that take you to the place where you can define, create, and, you know, and make happen. But I feel like we've all been so used to the hustle and bustle. And it makes me think too, like I was thinking about it driving here actually to the studio, is the human design stuff with, you know, the cross of planning leaving in 2027 and coming into the sleeping phoenix, and how the cross of planning is right. It is the patriarch, monarchy, whatever. It's all these, you know, these systems that kind of govern, that give us a sense of, well, planning, right? Routine, wake up, go to work, come home, see the family, make dinner, play with the kids, go to bed, whatever you know, everything's so pre-planned throughout our day. And it's like, if that actually does end, like how are people going to adapt and be able to be in that flow with the new times? And to think about, you know, so many people want liberation, so many people want freedom. It's almost like that's what the cross of the sleeping phoenix really brings, but it's almost like we're actually scared to identify with that. And then that made me think about just Jupiter and Chiron, because they met last time in Aquarius. And it seems like, you know, the last 13 years has been, I don't know, it's been like we want to be so socialist as a collective. We want to create these like everybody's equal, but we only divide more by going about it. So there's this big wound of like trying to make things equal. And then now we're coming into Chiron and Jupiter in Aries. And it's like, okay, now it's actually going to be more about actually defining your life and making choices for yourself and acting for yourself, instead of maybe acting for what's better for everybody else and trying to like figure that one out, which may or may not work, or may have worked, may not have worked. Now it's more about this defining place of how it's actually going to be really hard for people to define their own life out of a structure, out of a system, and to not be scared of that, because it's almost like everybody wants actually that plan, to be told what's next. And maybe that's the big thing too, is like releasing that and starting to really create your own plan, create your own way, be the pioneer for your life. If we're creators, that's what we came here to do, was to create life. And I think we're getting a golden ticket to do that, but I don't know. We're going to see what happens. Maybe nothing will change. I also thought about that on the way to work. It was like, okay, so our parents, their parents, like when they grew up, they probably didn't think the world would be the way it was when their kids grew up, right? So it's always changing. And I think sometimes as astrologers, we're always like, oh, especially now, because we're looking at the transits and like, wow, there are some big changes coming. But it's almost like every generation has had to go through that. But has every generation gone through the one that we're about to go through? And I guess that's yet to be written. It feels like it is, but I don't know. I was just contemplating that. It's just change is ever constant. So what's that going to look like? And are we going to be able to identify and create our own way? Or are we going to follow some other system that comes into play?
Yeah, I feel like the reality check is the human species itself is going through its next step in evolution, but a giant step in evolution, not like we constantly are evolving, but we create marker points. And I think the reality check is that the world, the universe, humanity, the galaxies, the multiverse is all making a quantum leap into a new evolutionary moment. Where if you tap into any part of existence itself, even if you tap up to God and above, you can feel as above, so below. It's just as uncertain up there as it is down here. So people are trying to grip with everything they got to whatever they can find on the side of a pool for some handrail to hold on to instead of letting go and realizing you'll be okay. You can swim, you can float through this, and it's okay that we're all evolving, because we know that even every part of every stretch of this whole universe is going through the same unknown of what the evolution is going to feel like. And I don't think that a lot of our greatest fears of destruction are what are coming. Like when you brought up the Cross of Planning ending and this Rise of the Sleeping Phoenix, I always seem to think, what if it's just not been interpreted correctly? What if those who choose to evolve, and what's going to be kind of crazy is with technology and AI and in all these other aspects, it's the choice of being left behind in many ways. That there's so much fear that becomes created of advancing and evolving, that it's not that the systems end, it's the systems end in which we're old. And systems that we never contemplated before being integrated that weren't even on the radar of Ra himself. So, and that's using Pluto and the astrology of Pluto. That it's a much farther and wider grasp using the prophecies of Mayan understandings where we are in the 13th Baktun to understanding Nostradamus' ways of counting time and prophecy, and understanding that, if you get too caught up in the human design version of it, they're not good astrologers, astrology is the core to understanding these things. So I said in my class today, it's one of those piggybacked systems that's channeled by a man. And the only thing we want to trust in life is what is not created by man, but what we can understand on our own from the heavens and what they show us above. And that's what Pluto asks us to have the faith in, is that. Even it's the original I Ching, but this gene key thing is created by men trying to make it easier to understand the I Ching and the areas of the zodiac. So again, it's another channeled aspect by man and their own interpretation. And I don't think that with Pluto coming into Aquarius, we want to, that's the hard part, is 10% of people during the Revolutionary War participated, and it wasn't 10% the whole time. It came in waves of 48,000 down to 13,000 at a time. It was just 210,000 people overall out of a population of 2.4 to 2.5 million people. So it reminds me of like whether or not, it's a small group of people who have an idea of freedom. It's a small group of people who also you have to trust that on the other side it will be a certain way. And I think we all have to not be afraid to use the end of this Pluto Capricorn and the end of this Saturn Aquarius to really try and make sense of whether or not that feels destined or not, whether or not that feels in alignment or not, whether that actually makes sense or not. And I can tell you, doing my Pluto school and getting to the bottom and getting deeper into things, the human design thing I will always use as a tool, but I will not base my prophecy, nor will I base the full operation of every human being off of it, because it is so subjugated to throwing you into a couple tribes and not finding a way to unify at all. And saying that you are stuck and you have to be this one way forever when you have your own unique story that it forgets to tell you. Now, it does through different channels and it does through different gates, but it again still lumps you into you can only respond in this one way. Which we have many different ways to respond in astrology, which it doesn't incorporate. So it's one of those moments in life to remember what are tools and what are actually things that really connect with a higher divine purpose that you can do on your own. And that also are not defined by man itself, as if we are evolving as man to new systems and new situations, that everything that we are taking with it are tools, but also systems and situations that are going to be different than they are when they were written prior, like the Bible, for example. It's almost the way that people believed so much in the Bible, or even just the idea of Christ. 325 years after his death, and finally came together with Constantine and started to create something, which reminds me of Ra, trying to throw together astrology and I Ching and creating gene keys and creating these systems that, kind of reminds me of the same cult or following in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, look, it did come from one dude, channeled, like you said, and I totally am in agreement that I think right now we're in a time where I channeled from a book, whatever it is, like you really do want to connect to what you feel is true, whether someone else said it first or it just came to you. I mean, I do think that's a big part of where we're at. And I mean, from where I'm looking at it, that channel of that cross changing and that being a really big cycle does fit in with the Mayan prophecies.
And the astrology too.
The astrology, right? Like
but that's what he was using.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was true. Am I basing all of my facts on it? No, but it resonates. But I think that that's what's really important, is for each and every one of you to really identify with what resonates to you, what feels true to you, what aligns with whatever your truth is, and to kind of like just make it happen. If your truth is to go develop an AI system, go develop that AI system. That's probably what you're here to do. I'm not here to tell anybody what's wrong or right. I don't even think AI is bad. I think that it's going to be used for bad. I think that it's going to be used for amazing things too. Just like everything on this planet, there's a polarity to everything. So to just group anything into it's bad or it's good is probably, just a judgment on oneself's own part. But look, we're all going to find our path here, and it's just about identifying with that and going with it. And there's no right or wrong. People are going to say, I think that there's right or wrong. I don't know if there is. I feel like every individual's destiny is unique to them. So who's to even judge like what's wrong or what's right on any path that we take in life right now? But that's just my opinion.
No, and I'm on the same page with you. I'm not trying to even say that it's a bad thing. I think it's just one of those things to where we have to incorporate everything with it to decide. It's like a deciphering a code, right? Like we all feel like we're trying to decipher the code of the universe right now, and it's
absolutely,
we got to use every tool that we got. But it made me think when and I'll just take one little snippet of many. I think I've taught now over 10 hours of Pluto masterclass. But when I'm teaching about Pluto coming into Aquarius and how it's going to affect people in their charts, and I thought of Pluto and Aquarius, and I thought of, human design for a second, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, let's say things have to go underground because in order to get in touch communication-wise with somebody, because something's happened to the skies or something's happened in communication, you got to take a sewer. Well, one, if you're a projector and you've got to get that line of communication out, and what, you're not invited, you're not going to take the sewer. Or if it doesn't feel like you want to respond because you don't like the grossness of a sewer, because you've been lived in a life where it feels good to respond because it feels good literally, physically and naturally, but it starts to bring an unnatural world that's different, but is still natural, to go down in a sewer and not knowing what marker you need to make a right or a left at. but you won't go there because it doesn't feel good to you. You don't want to respond to it, yet Pluto and Aquarius is having to make deals, Pluto, in order to get what you want in areas that are very weird and different. So it makes me realize like the whole concept is really one of those things to where, you know, if you have a gun and I have love and you're lonely, but I have the ability to love and I need protection, but you need emotional protection. These are the deals we make as Pluto and Aquarius comes in. They go against the whole understanding of human design. So as far as the response goes.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's kind of one of those moments where it's like Pluto and Aquarius is going to throw everything for a loop. It even throws astrology for a loop. It throws everything for a loop. And it's one of those things to where it's about adapting and evolving with the evolution and not having so many... Because I think the end of Pluto and Capricorn is like, things are set in destiny, but they're not set fully in structure. Because it goes into a complete, unpredictable, wild, and transformational time that... you know, you're going to have to roll with things. And I think doing astrology, you're able to see how you are uniquely, and that we all have a very unique response. That every Leo is not the same response, and not every rising sign is the same response based off planets in your chart and all that. And so I think it's about taking the parts of things and how to bring them all together, which is Aquarius. That in no way am I trying to say I will never use human design, because I still love it. But it's one of those things to where I go, well, where are the human design people in the day-to-day? They're always just referring you to come back to your strategy and authority. But when you're in times like these, we need more than that. We need to understand the uniqueness of yourself and understand how there are moments by the heavens that are saying, well, we all should probably not react to our egos, which would take every manifester out of the game. Or it would take all of the people who are supposed to respond out of the game and take every invite out of the game. Especially when you're at a pause moment about big changes that you might want to make in your life or so forth. So it's one of those moments to where it has me questioning systems, especially since it's Pluto and Capricorn testing the integrity and the strength of certain systems, and that not all systems fail. And I don't think human design will fail. Again, it's also been said to be used as one of the systems for the future. So, you know, maybe it's something that makes more sense to us on the other side or in the sewers when we're underground. But it was just something that made me realize, teaching it to people so deep, how deep I go in this Pluto masterclass, that it's not so simple. And that especially in Aquarius is very integrative and also very confusing and unpredictable sign, and a lot of detriment comes with it, a lot of banishing, and a lot of, you know, understanding the measurement of where we are in the universe, and the understanding of the as above, so below is Uranus itself. So it's like, I don't know if the universe has some sort of system that's exactly like the one that we have here, but I think as if we look as above to the celestials and the super celestial energies, I think that as above, they look down on the same thing. I don't think that it's drawn out looking like a little human body graph like the universe is drawn, which it doesn't take universal factors into human design. It doesn't take prophecy of galactic alignments, nor declinations, nor any of the other things that are actually happening. So it's missing a lot of pieces of astrology and picking what it wants, which I don't think we can pick just what we want. It's very Scorpio. So it's like, you know, it feels like a spiritual bypass to say, I'm if I was a projector, I just have to wait for an invite. And this is like, is it really? Is life just really just that simple? You know?
Yeah. I think those are good points. I guess I think it's possible that was like a first draft of the system. Like there's probably more to human design that maybe that's what Aquarius would bring to that system, because I think that there's definitely importance to it, but it is simplified. Like you said, like, all right, there's 6 lines, and what is it? You get to be a generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector.
Well, yeah, there's 5 types.
5, right, so it's very simplified. Like it's very just like, this
and
is
then
it.
The lines are colors.
Right, and there's colors. So it's just very simplified. I wouldn't be surprised if, I know to some people when they look at it, it looks like this big mess, but it's very like, it's actually simple when you kind of like start to understand it. And if you really want to, that there might be another layer that we haven't discovered within that yet. Possibly.
Yeah, like that's why I brought up the astrology. Like if we're going to use astrology, why are the human design people not astrologers? Because as an astrologer coming into human design, I'm like, God, look at how many other aspects could be added, but they don't.
Right.
And they gear it on the gene keys, which uses the zodiac, which is, again, a interpretation of a very few individuals who have come together to take parts of the I Ching and take parts of the zodiac and create their own thesis on what it means. So it reminds me of how in astrology, we just don't take the interpretations off of Astro Gold that was written by Robert Hand or written by this astrologer. We can interpretate it differently. But the problem in the human design community is like, it kind of reminds me of Indian astrology, where it's like, no, the Vedas say this, and this astrologer from 3,000 years ago said this, and you don't change it. We don't add the outer planets. It's like, okay. So it reminds me of a system where it's like, now you're going to add that their Mars is out of bounds in their chart? No, you're not. Are you gonna add that we're at a really weird space to where the planet just had come direct, so for most of their life it's not at full speed? No.
Yeah. Or like a moon that's just heavily afflicted in a bad house.
Correct. That it, like maybe looking at the body graph and looking at, you know, one of the centers and being like, okay, you know, you have, like me, I have Mars in the first gate. My Mars came direct right before I was born. I was not born with Mars full speed ahead. So yeah, it's in the first gate. Yeah, it's a powerful gate in the sacral. And, you know, yeah, it connects to the 60 gate, right? It's one of those moments that, or sorry, I think that's 60, I think it's the 8th gate maybe? Yeah, the 8th gate, sorry, that connects in the sacral to the 60 where Pluto is right now. But it's one of those moments where the rooting and the foundation, I get it. Like I get all this stuff. I get that the 60th gate is the restriction to the 2nd degree of Aquarius until we move out of that. And there's a lot of that is true, but it's one of those things where in individuals' charts, they're not adding the stuff that we really know as good astrologers. And, you know, Ra was a decent astrologer. I wouldn't call him an astrologer, right? He's somebody who kind of understood it well and understood this and picked and prodded parts of it. But there's a depth missing.
Yeah.
And that's where it made me go, ooh, you know, it's not something that you just want to like ride or die. It's like the same thing how people went and got Pfizer tattooed on their arms. Like it was a ride or die moment where obviously people aren't looking to go get a Pfizer anything right now, you know? And so I just feel like this is a moment where we take the best that we've got tools wise and we try to advance them, and Pluto's going to have to take everything deeper to be advanced. And that's what's beautiful is everything we have in our life is beautifully set up, like human design, like your relationships, like your job, like every other place in your life, to be go deeper into and to evolve better. Everything that you have in front of you right now has that choice, or if your ego doesn't want to do that or not, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I use human design as like a very, very like base layer of like, all right, strategy and authority. Cool. I can consider that in my day-to-day life. And I would say that when I have considered it, it has worked out well. But yeah, there's so much more to it. And that's why I think I still heavily resonate more with astrology. Like, sure, I'm a generator. I'm supposed to respond in life. Life's throwing things at me. I feel like it's throwing things at everybody though, right? Like life's always happening. But it's like my job to respond to it. But how I respond to it is really based more off of my astrology of this like very like fine detailed blueprint that has all these just so many layers to it. But I think I use human design more as like this very simple base layer, because I'm not like a professional human design, person either. So I don't want to act like I am, but just a base layer that I use to navigate through the astrology, which I pay way more attention to. That's kind of how I go about it, but I just want to throw that in.
I just think that my question about it is, if you are a human design person, it's kind of like a kindergarten, like here's the system, and then you go to like 6th grade, and then you like graduate and you make it to high school, and then you're done. And then I feel like it's not like you come back to a human design person every year to see how things are going, because they're just going to reinstate the same thing. Like, hey, are you responding correctly?
Right.
And I don't feel that any system that's got full validity stops. It continues, which I'm not saying that human design doesn't, but I'm saying that the people who do it don't want to go deeper into astrology, which is really weird.
And maybe they will. Maybe that's what it needs.
Like, and like that they don't want to add to the astrology part of it, which is the core of it. To even on the idea of like when you're born and the planet's placed, or the 88 days to come up with the design of being one whole rotation of Mercury. Like, that's not said anywhere, but I just said that because that's the only thing that makes sense.
Agreed.
Right? Like, it's not like Ra told you, or any human design person has told you, 88 days is design. They just say that without even knowing why.
Probably because it came from the channel portion.
Right. But he never still said it.
Right.
And then all the human design people don't even understand that as an astrologer, it's easy. 88 days, we automatically, the astrologers go to, that's Mercury's rotation around the sun. So he's taking your design date as being one whole moment where Mercury goes around and sees every planet in helio. And that, right, it's the moment before, 88 days before your birth, that Mercury does one whole and sees every planet one last time and gets the understanding. So it would be interesting to see the helio chart. And it would also be interesting to see the placements of in the helio chart of that 88 days with the design date to actually see what the design truly is spiritually motivated by. But they don't even think that way. So it's one of those places that I'm at a place to where, because so many people want me to integrate that more. And I'm like, well, I did a combo astrology, and then I did a human design reading for a client last week, and she was blown away. She's like, I just can't even believe that you did, because it's so easy to integrate the astrology and throw in all this extra astrological stuff into it, that they're like, even all the best human design people I went to didn't even get to the true core of that. Plus you gave me an astrology reading, plus the human design on top of it. It's like, shit, what have I been wasting my time on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I use it as a confirmation sometimes. I don't even pull it up for every client. It'll be like a random one. I'll like look at their astrology and I'll see certain things about it. And I'll be like, you're a projector. I just know it. And I will pull up their human design and they'll be a projector. And it'll be something weird like having a bunch of Capricorn, but other aspects saying that they're not supposed to just be this like worker. They're here to be more in charge of situations, or other aspects that go into it too. But I would just be like, oh, and then sure enough, pull it up and be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. You're a projector. You don't have this battery. You're not here to do it all, work, go grind 9 to 5 every day. Like, you're more of a shot caller. You know, so I don't know. It's a tool.
Well, and one, you know, in the chat said, well, that Ra describes it as being a mechanical way. And what's funny is the mechanics, just look at this year alone, have changed, right? The Earth was speeding up the last 3 years, and now the core has stopped. Now they found a new core. So the mechanics change. I think that's one of the weird things. And that's why astrology adjusts, and evolutionary astrology adjusts to the changes. We find Pluto, we add it in. We find a new, or we use the asteroids and go, okay, or more importantly, the comets, and we follow where the comet's going. They don't add that shit in.
Right.
So I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but I would love for some human design person to try and tell me I'm wrong. But it feels like it's like a MLM. Like everybody just hop on the train and sell it better. And it feels like a quick, easy way to spiritual leadership and guidance, but leaving people with not much at the end to continue with on their own that they could use on their own. It doesn't keep them evolving in a way that actually takes them where the universe is evolving too. At least tarot people will go, I mean, at least give me another card. Let me throw this down. Let me look at this. Let me look at that. They're able to go into all these different areas. But I feel like with human design, it really, number one, it doesn't take into account, you know, your situation with your mother, or if it's not there. It doesn't take in the situation of how many kids you might have or what your relationship with kids will be and what the challenges are with that, except from a very basic position. So, and I'm sure they can counter with another more intense way. Well, they have this channel and you have that channel and da-da-da-da. But it doesn't add a spiritual quality to it. If they're talking about mechanics, it should be able to mechanically tell me when I'm going to get married, when I'm going to have kids. It doesn't.
Right.
Well, it's all based off this idea of free will of when I chose to respond correctly.
Right, which I think we both question free will.
Correct.
So
yeah, but I'm always open to any human design person wanting to talk about it or do an interview about it. And I'd like to have a debate with human design because it can integrate those things, but I want to know why they don't. Especially because it's a system that's selling like The Secret, the law of attraction, which we all know that's bullshit. Because if you're just trying to attract what you want, like a house, I want the marriage, I want the perfect job and all that shit, but your astrology's aiming in all these other opposite directions of whatever your fantasy or your deep desire of your emotional desires are built upon feeding off your Scorpio and your sacral wants and needs and thinking that you can bypass your destiny or your wants and that you'll be able to law of attraction it out. It's the same idea of, you know, being a manifesting generator and that, you know, I'll respond to whatever comes that feels right, that I'm able to respond quickly to, faster than most because I'm a manifesting generator. And it's based off this idea of like the free will that, you know, well, you didn't respond right is what it always comes down to the end to, or like you missed the road instead of being conscious of what the road actually was. You know, they don't tell you what the road's going to be. Right. So,
yeah, that's life.
Yeah, so it kind of reminds me of like, hey, you need to be able to operate life and drive with this driver's license. And if you don't, you won't get anything. But I feel like there's people who make great lives and they don't follow any of this stuff, you know? So.
Very true.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Reality check.
Reality check.
You know? Make sure that you join us on High Vibe and make sure you follow Brian, Fixed Air Moon on everything, right? Everything?
Everything.
Everything.
Except TikTok. You
Except
won't find me
TikTok.
there.
What are you on TikTok? Fixer Brian?
I'm not on TikTok.
Oh, you're not on TikTok.
You won't
yeah.
catch me there.
You will cash him over there. Maybe
Catch me
when Pluto's in
outside
Aquarius,
of
they'll
TikTok,
catch him
how about
there,
that?
and then it'll be just taken down by the government. But it's been great. We'll see you next week. It's gonna be a gnarly week. Remember that. Remember everything's on edge, and don't freak out. And we'll see you in High Vibe, and I'll see you in my Pluto Masterclass Monday and Fridays. 7 more today was the 3rd out of 9, so there's 6 more classes left. Don't miss them. And you can catch up on the recordings, highvibetvschool.com. Adios.
This is High Vibe TV, the uncensored, guided, and community-based video TV network with content recorded and live streamed from the world-famous High Vibe TV studios. High Vibe TV delivers daily, weekly, and special programs focused on astrology, spirituality, history, community, and more. This is not your run-of-the-mill astrology and tarot. This is the future of spirituality, illuminating new ways the collective can step into the dawning of this exciting new dimension. The highest vibe is truth, and the truth always prevails. Download our awesome app on the Apple and Android stores so you don't miss our notifications with special spiritual insights curated to the energy of the universe. Search for us on your TV with our exciting TV apps on Apple TV and Roku. Catch our vibe on your computer, where you can join in on the live chat with our amazing community and blog. Watch spirituality like you've never seen before. Download our apps or go to highvibe.tv. Subscribe now.